The battle for the mind of North America will be fought in the video arena.
And we are live, I guess. Yes, we are live. That's fantastic. Well, thanks for coming, guys. Max here. Hope you guys are doing great. It is May the 5th, 2025, with a lot of fives, Cinco de Mayo, for those who understand. That's the I think it's Independence Day in Mexico. I'm not fully familiar with that. So that's good. So thanks for coming in. I'm just gonna let some people joining in as well too. Do we have audio issues? Nope. I think we all set to see my little thing there moving around. So that's down to the roof, which is fantastic. So today I'm going to talk about the interview that I scheduled on the podcast today. It's kind of rare for me to post two videos at the same date because I have to reschedule those things, which is kind of amazing. which is quite actually interesting because of things that are going on right now. It's kind of cool to see all things going up in our own eyes. So I just want to talk about this particular incident, about Danielle Smith's press release that she made today. We had a lot of people watching. Also, I want to talk about the rally that we have here, the rally for independence here. I was doing the video editing for that as well. We have a lot of people there. The scenes were jam packed. I think there was a lot of people at the stream as well too when I schedule it. And also I want to talk about how things are going forward right now. I think the things that need to be improved or need to be discussed. So that's going to be for the menu today. There was a very rush live that I've done, but that was good to see that many people joining in. So if you're watching right now the stream, I just want to see when in the comments where you guys are watching up right now. I see that there were some people watching from Okotoks the other day. There were some people from New Brunswick as well watching that, which is very, very awesome. So I would say that overall, Danielle Smith was very safe in this particular. So she was playing safe in this. So she was basically playing safe in this um, in this particular conference. She was playing safe, and the reason why she was playing safe, I guess, is because, and she said on the video, we're gonna go through that as well too. She was basically trying to convince. She wasn't saying no to the idea of a referendum, but I think that she's playing the card safe, and she can't say she's going to support a referendum because for optical reasons. First of all, she can't say that she's going to support a referendum. She has to play the cards right. You have you got the guys on the NDP. You got the potential unions, the all the usual actors like the NDP, the unions, and all those stuff over there. But also First Nations who are essentially against her, right? So by saying that she's going to would likely support the referendum right on day one is going to remove some flexibility that she has. I think that what she's doing was particularly nice is that she was saying, look, we're not close to the idea, but if you guys want that, you have to make sure that your vote and everything you have to exceed the threshold as well too. On the other hand, that allows people to organize themselves within the grassroots to some degree. So by the time the referendum vote comes in, then at least we'll have some sort of like a people will have the grassroots will have a plan and or a should I say a plan of action to some degree. So I think that's a good approach. I get it's a balanced approach. She couldn't say yes. She's not saying no, but depending on how you see things, you might see things like, oh, she's denying the referendum. She is saying no. There's a lot of optics in this particular game. It's politics. What you guys expect is politics. So in the game of politics, you have to control expectations. And one of the things that you have to control, and she's a libertarian, by the way. So I think she's playing the libertarian card on this situation here. And one of the things that she's working very hard is to maintain the role as a premier without causing issues to both people who agree with her and people who disagree with her. Let me explain. When she's talking about and she said she supports Canada. She supports Canada. Okay, fantastic. Some people will be turned off by this idea that she supports Canada. I already think about right now. I'm just thinking right now some podcasters right now trying to cut the little pieces where she's speaking right now and basically trying to twist the message to suit their needs. Okay. So that's what I'm going to do. I'm not going to twist the word. That's not the point. But I'm going to play the stream from the government, from Danielle Smith, and I'm just going to comment on that because if you are a political strategist, there's a lot of material that you can think about it, and there's a lot of things that you might think behind the scenes that you can already do right now as well. And she's not close to the idea of a referendum. She's just very prudent and she's playing her cards right now. So that's what she's doing right now. So I'm just going to play the recording here real quick, and then I'm going to move to the next set of items on the menu. So let's go through this, and I'm going to comment and pause all over. So it's going to be fun. I know you guys already watched the video. I understand it, but this is like a comment version here.
Within a United Canada Act. We've opened our doors today.
I just don't know where it starts. There's.
My fellow Albertans,
hello.
Today I wish to speak to you about the future of Alberta and Canada. Albertans have always been loyal, proud, and generous Canadians. We love Canada. We have fought wars and died defending Canada. We've opened our doors wide for millions of our fellow Canadians searching for opportunity, many of whom stay and become Albertan, and many who return home to their native province. All have been welcomed with open arms. Our province has contributed hundreds of billions of dollars more to the federal treasury for use in other parts of the country than will ever receive back in benefits. We have allowed this to occur because, quite frankly, we know how blessed our province is with an endowment of natural resources that no other country on earth possesses. And we want all of our friends, families, and fellow Canadians across the country to benefit from it.
She's trying to get in playing the... She's not undermining that we have a 10 years of Liberal government. And she's basically saying, look, this is Canada. Thanks for coming out with us. You know, the usual.
We don't ask for special treatment or handouts. We just want to be free to develop and export that incredible wealth of resources we have for the benefit of our families and future generations. Free to pursue opportunities with the ideals of entrepreneurship, hard work, and innovation that have become synonymous with the name of our province. Freedom to choose how best to provide healthcare, education, and other needed social services to our people, even if it's done differently than what Ottawa has in mind. Strong and free is more than just our provincial motto. It represents who we are and how we want to live as a people. And that is why Albertans are so frustrated with the direction of our country. For the last 10 years, successive Liberal governments in Ottawa, supported by their new Democrat allies, have unleashed a tidal wave of laws, policies, and political attacks aimed directly at Alberta's free economy, and in effect, against the future and livelihoods of our people. They have blocked new pipelines with C-69, canceled multiple oil and gas projects, and banned the very tanker ships needed to carry those resources to new markets.
Basically, a continuation of what she was saying is that right now she's basically saying that the Liberals have done. This is what they've done. This is how Alberta is hurt. This is how the Liberals all been a pin in the butt for the last 10 years. This is the state of the situation right now, right?
They have stacked an oil and gas production cap on top of a crippling industrial carbon tax, making new energy and agricultural projects economically impossible to pursue without massive subsidies from governments, which Ottawa has failed to provide and which our taxpayers cannot afford. This onslaught of anti-energy, anti-agriculture, and anti-resource development policies have scared away global investments to the tune of $500 billion, driving those investments and jobs out of Alberta and Canada to much more attractive investment climates in the United States, Asia, and the Middle East. Having traveled much of the world these past few years, it is evident that Canada is not viewed as an attractive place to invest in resource development, manufacturing, or agriculture because of our high carbon taxes, endless red tape, and the uncertainty and chaos brought about by these and other federal government policies. As a result, Canada has fallen to dead last in economic growth among industrialized nations. The world looks at us like we've lost our minds.
Isn't that true? We like when I go to, let's say that now it is not too bad, but when a time I was traveling in the United States a couple of years back before this pandemic, I was going to the United States quite a while, and basically the guys over there were saying, "Your guys are out of your minds with Trudeau and her liberal friends." Now we got Mark Carney, who is essentially the big boss of Justin Trudeau, right? It's like when you're in a game, when you're in a game. So basically, like Trudeau is like the little guy, like the little pound, like the little pawn, and then you got the big boss, which is Mark Carnage, which is quite interesting to see, right? But that's 100% true. Anyway, how many Americans to talk to, and they say that, "Hey, what's up in Canada, right? What's up going on? What's going on over there?"
We have the most abundant and accessible natural resources of any country on earth.
Yep.
And yet we landlock them, sell what we do produce to a single customer to the south of us, while enabling polluting dictatorships to eat our lunch. For Albertans, these attacks on our province by our own federal government have become unbearable. As I said, these policies have cost Albertans roughly $500 billion in investment, and that loss is growing daily. It has and will continue to cost hundreds of thousands of jobs, robbing countless Albertans and other Canadians of their means of providing for their families. It has cost us a decade of opportunities and tens of billions in lost royalties that could have been invested in the health, education, infrastructure, and social services Albertans and Canadians need. And what's worse, Ottawa continues onward with more destructive policies. They have imposed net zero mandates on our natural gas-based power grid, causing investment in reliable generation from natural gas to flee, thereby endangering the future stability of our power grid and risking future blackouts and spikes in electricity costs for Alberta families and businesses. They have attacked our food producers with methane taxes, onerous regulations on fertilizer, electric vehicle mandates, and many other destructive policies that have hiked costs on our farmers and ranchers and driven billions of dollars of investment in agriculture elsewhere.
Trying to run an EV in Alberta, it's almost impossible in the winter. Your car's gonna die. If you have a cell phone and you're trying to run in the winter, at one point your cell phone's gonna die. It's the same thing on a vehicle. I saw a video. I just saw a video. I was goofing around on the internet, and I saw this video. I found this channel on YouTube, and she's from Northern Ontario. She's gonna come back. She's gonna move to Alberta because of how insane things are over there in Ontario. And she's saying that, look, I've done some research on oil and gas, that there's no way that an EV is gonna survive at -40 in Alberta or in Edmonton in that regard, or -50 in Mac. It's impossible.
They've interfered in provincial jurisdiction time and again, from taking over the regulation of plastics to mandating how we operate childcare, healthcare, and dental care, to harassing law-abiding firearms owners, to dozens of other examples of unconstitutional interference. And of course, Alberta has fought back. We always have and always will. We passed the Sovereignty Within a United Canada Act and have invoked it twice to protect Albertans as best we can from the effects of the net zero electricity regulations and the energy production cap. We beat the feds in court on both the No New Pipelines Law, C-69, and their attempt to regulate plastics, though they have ignored both court decisions to this point. And we have just announced a court challenge on the net zero electricity regulations and are further preparing to also challenge the energy production cap.
This is a critic. If you are at the grassroots level, if you are a hardcore separatist, if you will, or a hardcore anti-Danielle Smith, if you will, you're going to think that what she's doing, and this is something that people might think of, in the grassroots is that she's not doing enough. Okay, if you go to a town hall meeting and you ask people there in a town hall and you have private discussions with them, some people might think because she's only using the Sovereignty Act within the Canada Act and not separation, she's not going doing it. She's not going good enough. And as I said before, I'm already seeing those podcasters go into that direction, like saying in all the towns there. I already see some people like trying to create distraction and trying to distract people, say, oh, you see, she's using the Sovereignty Act, she's not separating the country, she's not separating Alberta from Canada, she's only doing just that, right? I really think about some people doing that as well. I don't not give you names, and quite frankly I don't care, but this is something that some people in the grassroots will behave and will think about it. So, so this is one of the things that people need to, you you have to be in the grassroots to think like them enough to understand their moves as well too, right? And she's also going to talk later on the clip about independence as well too, and the not independence but the referendum and everything in between.
We continue to do all in our power to counteract Ottawa's chill on investment in energy, agriculture, and our other job sectors through various tax cuts and incentive programs, which greatly strain the provincial budget. We have fought these attacks from Ottawa furiously and have won some important battles, but the lost opportunities, jobs, and futures of so many Albertans are costly and demoralizing, as are the growing number of Eastern politicians who choose to openly demonize and target Alberta for political gain. That is why a large majority of Albertans are so deeply frustrated with the results of last week's federal election. It's not that our preferred candidate and party lost. That happens in a democracy. It's that the same Liberal government with almost all the same ministers responsible for our nation's inflation, housing, crime, and budget crisis, and that oversaw the attack on our provincial economy for the past 10 years, have been returned to power.
Yep. Again, what she was talking about, the 10 years from Trudeau and her criminal friends and everything, that's about it. She's basically reiterating what we already know.
Now, as we all know, one thing has changed. We have a new prime minister. And I will say that in my first conversation with him since the election, he had some promising things to say about changing the direction of his government's anti-resource policy.
And now she's going to talk about later on the video about her list of demands. If you remember a couple of months back, or I think last month, she was doing, or during the election, I believe, she was doing a letter. She sent a letter to the House of Commons or something like that about the future demands that she has for the next prime minister at the federal level. Like she's going to talk about it anyways, but like make sure that we have an economic corridor for oil and gas. Make sure that products from Alberta are not being blocked. That sort of thing. If you are a hardcore grassroots guy, you're gonna think, oh, she's not doing good enough. Already, I'm thinking about some people gonna try to trash Danielle because she was doing different things. Again, it's all about optics. She is basically walking on eggshells right now. She can say one thing and do the other, and she has to tell people who are not necessarily in the grassroots how the government is going to act on those things, right?
Policies. However, Albertans are more of a actions speak louder than words kind of people. So while I will in good faith work with Prime Minister Mark Carney on unwinding the mountain of destructive legislation and policies that have ravaged our provincial and national economies this past decade, until I see tangible proof of real change, Alberta will be taking steps to better protect ourselves from Ottawa.
Again, you got Mark Carney. What are things going to do? You got something like Mark Carney. We have no idea what's going to happen with them. She might, Mark Carney might say things like, "Hey, we're just going to give the care. It's going to be the carrot of the stick situation." Maybe Mark Carney was going to say, "Hey, it's going to do this and that, this and that," and within 6 months, nothing happens. So what's going to happen? We already know that nothing's going to happen with this guy. He is a hardcore ESG guy who wants to absolutely put the climate emergency into every single financial decision. If you want to get a loan, for example, you have to evaluate how much carbon dioxide you want to put out of the atmosphere, that type of thing. So she's given the chance officially to the federal government. She's basically saying, your move, Mark Carney. But let's see how it goes. But I don't believe that Mark Carney is going to play fair on this one too, because he's a pathological liar.
As a start, I will soon appoint a special negotiating team to represent our province in negotiations with the federal government on the following reforms requested by our province. We hope this will result in a binding agreement that Albertans can have confidence in. Call it an Alberta Accord, if you will. First, Alberta requires guaranteed corridor and port access to tidewater off the Pacific, Arctic, and Atlantic coast for the national export of Alberta oil, gas, critical minerals, and other resources in amounts supported by the free market.
And if you ever lived in Quebec, which I did, the Quebec government over there, especially with Yves-François Blanchet at the bloc, trying to convince everybody that everything should be go electrical and everything in between. Interestingly enough, Hydro-Quebec is not included in the equalization payments, by the way. So the way they set up the equalization payments back then was that if you had natural resources, and Quebec has a lot of natural resources, those natural resources must be used to calculate and to be calculated during the equalization setup, basically. So Hydro-Quebec is not part of this. It's not part of the equalization payment. It's not calculated during equalization payments. Joseph, why?
Rather than by the dictates and whims of Ottawa. Every province in the country, other than Alberta and Saskatchewan, have coastal port access, and no province needs it more given the size and value of our resources. This will benefit all Canadians to the tune of trillions of dollars of economic activity, including billions for First Nations partners. Second, the federal government must end all federal interference in the development of provincial resources by repealing the No New Pipelines Law, C-69, the oil tanker ban, the net zero electricity regulations, the oil and gas emissions cap, the net zero vehicle mandate, and any federal law or regulation that purports to regulate industrial carbon emissions, plastics, or the commercial free speech of energy companies. These laws are destroying investment confidence and costing Canada and Alberta hundreds of billions in investments each year. They need to go. Third, the federal government must refrain from imposing export taxes or restrictions on the export of Alberta resources without the consent of the government of Alberta. Frankly, all provinces should be given that same respect for their resources. And fourth, the federal government must provide to Alberta the same per capita federal transfers and equalization as is received by the other three largest provinces, Quebec, Ontario, and British Columbia. We have no issue with Alberta continuing to subsidize smaller provinces with their needs, but there is no excuse for such large and powerful economies like Ontario, Quebec, BC, or Alberta to be subsidizing one another. That was never the intent of equalization, and it needs to end. If these points can be agreed to by the federal government, I am convinced it will not only make Alberta and Canada an infinitely stronger and more prosperous country, but will eliminate the doubts a growing number of Albertans feel about the future of Alberta in Canada.
This is a catch-22 right now. She's outlined. Okay, so we know that, and I'm going to give you the article later on. She's giving a list of demands during the election. Fine. She is not giving any deadline in this particular press release. None. She's basically saying this is what we want, this is what we need, period. She's not giving any deadline or anything of that nature. Well, not an official deadline, but she's going to give some time frames later on for referendums in plural, but she's not giving the federal government, no, the guys at the federal government notice. Just FYI.
While these negotiations with Ottawa are ongoing, our government will appoint, and I will chair, the Alberta Next panel. This panel will be composed of some of our best and brightest judicial, academic, and economic minds to join with me in a series of in-person and online town halls to discuss Alberta's future in Canada, and specifically, what next steps we can take as a province to better protect Alberta from any current or future hostile policies of the federal government.
Those events will be shown on the Freedom Canada website. So you want to take a look at where those guys are going to do their town halls and everything, feel free to do so. To check on freedomcanada.net, you're going to see all the events. I'm going to have to make a category for that, I guess.
Details of the membership and scope of that panel will be released in the coming weeks.
Mm-hmm.
After the work of the panel is finished, it is likely we will place some of the more popular ideas discussed with the panel to a provincial referendum so that all Albertans can vote on them sometime in 2026.
Sometimes in 2026. January 26, March 26, July 26. We don't really know.
To be clear from the outset, our government will not be putting a vote on separation from Canada on the referendum ballot.
This is the kicker here. And she's going to talk about the separation side of things too. Is that if you are people who haven't looked at the entirety of the video just yet, you're going to think, oh, she's not for separation. Oh, she's a federalist. Oh, she's doing this. She's doing that. You have to see this four-dimensionally sometimes in this particular video. She's not saying no, but she is not saying yes. How do I say that? She's not doing the referendum as a number one priority. And she's going to explain later on that the vote on separation, if any, will be included in that set of referendums. So you have, let's say, a referendum on energy. You will have a separation, a referendum on agriculture. You might have a referendum on natural gas. You might have a referendum on XYZ, you know. And then in between those referendums, you will have the referendum on separation, right? The reason why she's doing that is because the NDP and the status quo is basically trying to frame Danielle Smith as a separatist, right? What in reality, what she's trying to do in this case is trying to remove any possibility from Nahid Nanchit to attack her, saying, hey, no, this is not just the referendum. We're talking about this things, about those things, including the referendum on separation. Okay? So if you're thinking about like an NDP, if you're trying to shield yourselves from the NDP, you have to make sure that you're not working 100% for separation. If you're on the grassroots, you're going to have to think like, oh, you're probably going to say she's not doing enough. Okay? So that's Danielle Smith, and that's how she's going to be attacked on both ends. So she has to shield on both sides. That's what she's doing right now.
However, if there is a successful citizen-led referendum petition that is able to gather the requisite number of signatures requesting such a question to be put on a referendum, our government will respect the democratic process and include that question on the 2026 provincial referendum ballot as well.
So she's not saying no on a referendum on separation. As I said, she has to play both cards. She's not saying no. She's basically saying to the grassroots, if you want your separation, make sure that you have established your threshold of currently 600,000 people, not 177,000, but rather 600,000 people. Because right now, Bill 54 hasn't even passed yet. It's just tabled. But in order to be tabled at the legislature, it has to go through the regular process. So right at this moment, we can assume very well that the vote for separation has to have at least 600,000 votes. Okay? And this is the important part that might trigger some people here.
I also want to state unequivocally that as Premier, I'm entirely committed to protecting, upholding, and honoring the inherent rights of First Nations, Métis, and Inuit peoples. Therefore, any citizen-initiated referendum question must not violate the constitutional rights of First Nations, Métis, and Inuit peoples, and must uphold and honor Treaties 6, 7, and 8, should any referendum question ever pass. This is non-negotiable. Now let's talk about the elephant in the room, that being separation.
About what she just said about the indigenous situation here. I'm not well read on that specific note, but that for me, it looks like a loophole to me. Could be on drip on that regard. If she's saying that she's going to respect the natives, which is okay, but given how badly they behaved during the demonstrations on Saturday last weekend, they were basically they were completely disrespectful. They were very disrespectful. Is that going to be an open door for the natives to override and to overcome any citizen-led movement towards that? Also, on the other hand, I saw some commentaries on CTV where one of the chief leaders, one of the chiefs who were in Edmonton last weekend, she basically saying that she was happy that Mark Carney actually won the election because XYZ. Could it be they're just great actors, or they're actually doing the real thing? And or maybe there's a loophole where UNDRIP can be enforced on people in order to dilute or diminish any vote from Albertans. Just think about it. Just spitballing here. And this is the kicker.
We are well aware that there is a large and growing number of Albertans that have lost hope in Alberta having a free and prosperous future as a part of Canada. Many of these Albertans are organizing petitions to trigger a citizen-initiated referendum, as I mentioned earlier. The vast majority of these individuals are not fringe voices to be marginalized or vilified. They are loyal Albertans. They are quite literally our friends and neighbors who've just had enough of having their livelihoods and prosperity attacked by a hostile federal government.
The difference between Danielle Smith, who is basically acknowledging that the grassroots was saying, is that these are not French people. She's downplaying. At least she's not acknowledging that we're a bunch of weirdos or something. Unlike Jason Kenney, who are essentially saying that we should be eliminated from the, was basically saying that we should not be listened to and everything. So some improvement there. But again,
They're frustrated, and they have every reason to be. I want to talk directly to those Albertans. I know how frustrated so many of you have become with our country and the
Yep.
feeling of having politicians living thousands of miles away, passing laws and rules that have cost you your loved ones, jobs, careers, dreams, and opportunities for a brighter future. As most Albertans know, I have repeatedly stated I do not support Alberta separating from Canada.
and this is the plan here. Again, she's saying she's open for a referendum, but she cannot support a referendum. She has to do it indirectly. If she does say she supports a referendum directly, she's going to be attacked by the NDP. She's going to be attacked by her caucus. The knife's going to be flying out. Okay?
I personally still have hope that there is a path forward for a strong and sovereign Alberta within a united Canada. And let me explain a few reasons why.
Again, that's another attack vector. If you are in the grassroots, you're going to see that you're going to say, hey, you see, she's a federalist. She's a federalist. Let her talk.
First, Alberta already has and can continue to use the Alberta Sovereignty within a United Canada Act and other measures to fight through much of Ottawa's damaging interference and prosper in spite of it. We will also continue our successful battles against these unconstitutional and damaging policies in both the courts of law and public opinion. And there is more to be hopeful for. This past election demonstrated that attitudes across the country, especially among young people, are changing with respect to understanding the importance of free markets and the development of our natural resources.
I don't know about it. I don't have the data about it. All I can tell you is that the younger generation are pissed about the current situation right now.
People are pushing back against government censorship and cancel culture. More and more Canadians understand that in order for Canada to play a role in ending conflict and poverty at home and abroad, our country must become strong again. And we can only do that by becoming an energy and economic superpower using the vast and unmatched energy, mineral resources, and fertile lands of our country. 85% of Canadians in this last election voted for the two leaders promising to turn Canada into an energy superpower and to build resource corridors, including for oil and gas, while only 13% voted for the fringe voices in the Socialist NDP and Bloc parties and their extremist leave-it-in-the-ground policies. Obviously, we have a ways to go, and it will take a lot of work to undo the damage caused by these last 10 years of Liberal NDP rule.
I just love the way she put it all together. But that sounds kind of made up too, right?
But that clear change in public opinion gives me hope. I think it should give all Albertans hope. Now, none of us knows what the future holds should Ottawa, for whatever reason, continue to attack our province, as they have done over the last decade. Ultimately, that will be for Albertans to decide, and I will accept their judgment. But I am going to do everything within my power to negotiate a fair deal for Alberta with the new Prime Minister. And while doing so, our government will work with Albertans on various initiatives to better protect Alberta's provincial sovereignty and economy from Ottawa should those negotiations fail and the economic attacks continue. Alberta didn't start this fight, but rest assured we will finish it and come out of it stronger and more prosperous than ever. In closing, I want Albertans to know how important it will be in the coming months for our province to be steadfast, unified, and to refrain from heeding the voices of those seeking to divide Albertans against one another. There will be many outside and even inside this province who will try and sow fear and anger among us. They will seek to divide us into different camps for the purposes of marginalizing and vilifying one another based on differing opinions, effectively pitting neighbor against neighbor and Albertan against Albertan. This is not the Alberta way. is not who we are, and it's not who I am. There are thousands of Albertans who are so frustrated with the last 10 years of Ottawa's attacks on their friends' and families' livelihoods that they feel Alberta would be stronger and more prosperous as an independent nation.
Good.
That is an understandable and justifiable feeling to have, even if we disagree on what to do about it. These Albertans are not traitors, nor should they ever be treated as such. They just love their province and family and want a better future than the one Ottawa is offering them right now. There are also thousands of Albertans that are so attached and loyal to their identity as Canadians that there is nothing Ottawa has done to our province that would justify Alberta leaving Canada. It's not that they think everything is perfect or that we've been treated fairly. They just believe being part of Canada, despite those problems, has much more value than leaving. These individuals are also loyal Albertans and should never be accused of being anything less.
Mm-hmm.
And then there are hundreds of thousands of Albertans that probably feel a lot like I do, that are deeply frustrated with the way our province has been mistreated and damaged by successive federal Liberal governments, and are not willing to tolerate the status quo any longer. But these Albertans still believe there is a viable path to a strong, free, and sovereign Alberta, empowered to succeed and prosper within a united Canada. A Canada where the federal government actually honors the Constitution, upholds provincial rights, and empowers provinces to pursue their unique potentials as their people so choose. Regardless of what each of us believes about this issue or what path we think is best, we as Albertans must be able to respectfully debate and discuss these issues with our friends, family members, and neighbors. I know that if we do that, in the end, our province will find the best solution for this immense challenge we face and come out of it stronger and more free than ever.
Yep.
I'll always put my faith in Albertans to find the right path. I trust you. May our beautiful Alberta always remain forever strong and free.
Yeah. And that concludes what she's saying, basically. And at the end of the day, she was playing the what I refer to as the libertarian cap, basically saying, hey, we got some people who claim to themselves, who, quite frankly, identify themselves as being Albertans. And you got people who identify as being Canadians, and Alberta, it's a province. So you have to work on that front too. So basically what people need to understand is, in a situation like this, we need to, the grassroots need, who are very serious about independence, they need to work on, so people who are thinking about independence, they need to, I think, convince the rest of the populace of, do like a, try to convince the population on how separation is a good idea and such and such. And she was talking about 2026. We've got some time, folks. People, the grassroots will have time to organize, time to set things straight. We'll have time to set everything in motion in a more organized and coordinated manner. And from that point, everything will be successful, and will be successful, and yeah, we'll go from there. I want to show you something about the video that we just recorded. This is like a different subject here, about the freedom, about the rally we have yesterday, and this is from the stream I just recorded. I'm just gonna move here and share the monitor here. These are great pictures, by the way. Great.
Aboriginal. Who here has family that is Aboriginal? Could you please clap?
That was good.
There we go. I just ask for respect from this side of our meeting here. I have something to say that I really like you to hear, and we're going to talk to you about how we're changing the administration of the land that's not related to your treaties or where you live. You had your rights before we did have ours, and we're talking about a transition of administration, not removing you from your land and not violating any treaties.
This is a message that the grassroots needs to put forward now, is to trying to convince the natives, the indigenous people, that what we're doing is not necessary to destroy what they don't have, because let's face it, let's be real here. The natives are the natives have been abused and been destroyed by this federal government. They've been let down by this federal government, and it's a shame that we have to have some people in government. It's got the best footage and sounds. Oh, sounds good. Thanks, Kevin. That's awesome. Yeah, and quite frankly, this is what it looks like. It's that the reason why we are in this mess now, especially with the natives, is because the federal government has let the natives down. It's unacceptable. It's not acceptable that at the reserves you have no drinking water. And I know personally people who work in reserves doing trades works over there, and their conditions is in between third war and the natives. There's no comparison. I mean, I feel bad for them, but it's the federal government who let them down. Now those people are angry at us because we're trying to make some change in government, and they're trying to use the movement as a sort of, we are the oppressors and they're the victims, which I said, no, they are the victims, but the federal government let them down. So we're trying to make I think that the grassroots needs to think about it in a more as a PR mechanism, and trying to change the tune of the message in a more positive way. Okay. And that's funny because in the stream, in the footage, all across the stream, the speakers over there were essentially saying, hey, I understand you're frustrated, but we're not against you. We're doing as he said, administrative change from government.
Would you please listen to our presentation, and you can hate us later.
Well said.
Yep.
Thank you. Michael Wagner is an independent researcher and writer and a...
So basically, so what happened is we have a lot of people in there. We are like 700, 800 people. The only issue that we have, and this is something that I want to talk about as well too, I didn't know it happened because I was the one with the mixer. I was, in fact, if you realize this microphone he's using is, in fact, the same microphone I'm using here. Probably not. I don't remember, but doesn't matter at this point. It's using the same microphones here. The point I was trying to make is that I didn't know at that time, but there was a group before this event from 11 to 12, something like that. And I was doing some testing of my sound system, see if it was able to make sure everything is working. I didn't know, but you cannot use the peer system on their while they were talking. My intention was not to destroy their conversation at all. It was just doing like mic checks. When you're doing sound systems, you do mic checks. Sometimes it happens. And it was sad that those people were essentially they were overpowering our sound system. They were like, we cannot interfere with them. I was doing some testing. I was not talking like to them. I was doing some testing, and during our speech, they were talking for the entirety, which is basically kind of like I just forgot my word. Anyways, I want to show you some important things about this specific event. I'm going to show you the important part of the guess, which is where Carrie Lambert talks about the procedures going on right now. Okay, let's go here. I like the sound quality, by the way.
What a crowd. I want to start
I am Albertan.
Yep.
Do we have any other proud Albertans out there? Even our friends over there, please give them a hand, people. They are proud Albertans as well. We've heard the reasons on why Alberta should be independent. And what I want to do is tell you a little bit about Alberta Prosperity Project. They are the referendum movement for...
I like the fact that on the stream, I absolutely could not hear any. So basically my setup here, what I have, you can't see from here, but what I have is a directional microphone facing the crowd, and it's a XLR. So this is like a mixer type of microphone, type of mixer, USB digital interface. So the way this thing works is that I have two XLR inputs on that thing. They they actually connected to the mixer, okay? And that has the output from both microphones, okay? So what I'm recording right now, the audio you hear on the stream, which is actually was coming out of the mixer, okay? That allowed me to filter a lot of the noise, the background noise, and this has also a little microphone on the front, which allowed me to capture the claps from people who were front, which is amazing. When I was setting this up, it was too sensitive. So that's why when you watch this stream at the very beginning, you can basically hear the counter protesters to some degree. And over time, I was able to have like this sweet spot where I could filter them out from the stream, but it's strong enough, it's sensitive enough, so I was able to hear the crowd that you can't see because I was on the stage, but they were just behind me, right?
A sovereign Alberta. APP's purpose is to educate, inspire, and unite all Albertans, businesses, and organizations to protect their prosperity, individual freedoms, rights, and self-determination by empowering the Alberta government to restructure Alberta's relationship within or without Canada. Oh, wait a minute. I got to strike that one there. There we go. There we go.
Classic.
APP started as Alberta Unity Project in 2021 and became Alberta Prosperity Project in 2022 after the convoy. I want to bring that up because this is not just a knee-jerk reaction to what happened on Monday with the federal election. We've been doing this for at least 4 years, and according to Michael Wagner, etc., we've been doing this at least for 50 years, maybe even since 1905. I'm not sure.
Mm-hmm.
A little too close. There you go. How's that? I'm too close. That's what she said. No, don't go there. No. I want to talk about the Citizens Initiative petition for Alberta sovereignty. And I'm just going to call it the petition. Has anybody signed the petition here? So what I'm going to do is actually tell you a little bit of fact-checked information, and I want to clarify some misinformation. You have actually not signed the petition yet. That is the important thing. APP is collecting the contact information to sign up, to sign for the petition. Is that confusing? The only reason I bring that up is because we've gone through this whole process before in Calgary with a Gondek recall. If anybody remembers that only happened a year ago, in which the rules were we needed 40% of the population of Calgary in order to vote out our current mayor.
I'm just going to
which
speed up a
would have
little
worked
bit
out
here.
to be- which means we need roughly 600,000 signatures. That's for Bill 54,
Yep.
which only went into first reading. And what does that bill basically say? It says that you only need 10% of the people who voted in the last election.
Okay, so here's the thing about the petition in particular. And I previously talked in a previous podcast, and I'm going to restate it again until people understand. All those petitions from change.org, and anything that is not from the Alberta Prosperity Project are either fraudulent or totally grassroots level because they don't know technology, because they don't know how to relay information. The only supported petition right now is the one from the Alberta Prosperity Project. Okay, I know that the reason why that petition is not keeping traction as fast as people will think it will be, I think, is because Alberta Prosperity Project.com is a long domain. And if you click on the URL, is Alberta Prosperity Project Alberta First Pension.nationbuilder.com. It's a mess. So what I'm going to show you something really quick that you're going to enjoy it. If you are on the Freedom Canada's website, I'm just going to share this screen a little bit here. I'm going to share the path here. Just 1 second. If you go to freedomcalendar.net on the website, right? So this is a website, freedomcalendar.net. You go on the list here and you click on Alberta Independence Movement. You click in here, and that's going to give you the link for the petition as well too. So if you click in here, it's going to go to the petition from the APP guys. Okay. If you are like me, who likes to buy domains and stuff, I got a domain for here, which is abexit.ca. So I'm just going to repeat that, abexit.ca. So if you type this on in a browser, abexit.ca, what it will happen on your browser is going to the Freedom Canada website, but it's going to redirect to the section of the Freedom Canada website that contains the link to the petition itself. And if you click in there, that's going to be the petition from APP, right? The reason why I'm doing this is because I think there's a problem with communication. A lot of the problems with the grassroots is that they're doing all those things, but nobody talks about it. And they think that they signed up their petition, but they did not. It's not the official petition. That's why the petition from change.org has over 200,000 signatures, but it's not the actual petition that will be used for Elections Alberta. Okay. Joseph, why? So how many people do we have here in this particular website? We have 145,600 signatures. So yes, the number has been unofficially lowered to 177,000, but we need to have, but the grassroots has to amass at least 600,000 signatures. 176K is quite frankly not enough. 600K, I think it's more reasonable. More reasonable. So even though because right now, as Mr. Kerry Lambert was saying, Bill 54 was tabled, it's not active yet. Okay, so continue.
That has not come into play yet. We are still abiding by the original rules, which were 20% of all eligible voters. So we had 3 million voters, which means we need roughly 600,000 signatures. That's what our goal was, and that is what our goal will still be. And the reason we're doing it that way instead of following the rules that may or may not happen, is because how great would it be to say to Danielle Smith, thanks for the opportunity of lowering the threshold, but we don't need your help because we have our 600,000 signatures.
Yep. Yep.
I need some water.
Yeah, I need some water too. Good catch, Anon. But yeah, so this is what we are right now. And I'm going to show you another video that I just found. This is from one of the speakers, John Bolton, which I touched base with them. I actually sent him the link to, so you can share on social media. So I'm going to share you a point, which is a valid point, which I already talked in a previous episode, which is, how you say this? All those groups who don't talk each other and the lack of leadership, I think it's a side effect of the grassroots not talking to each other. That's my assessment, obviously. I'm just going to show you. So go give him a shout to John Bolton over there.
And I'm going to tell you about it in a moment. And this is coming just a few days after the independence rally in Edmonton, which I enjoyed greatly the other day. I enjoyed meeting all the people there. There are so many people who want Alberta independence, but I am concerned about it. I'm going to tell you about that in just a moment. But first, I want to just follow up on a couple of things. Okay, so yesterday my videos got close to 90,000 views. It was a video about the independence rally, but it turned into something bigger than that. It was the First Nations groups there who were being anti-Semitic and racist on a microphone.
Yep.
My wife told me this happened. Somebody else can confirm that it happened. I went to the video, which was uploaded yesterday, and I'll tell you where you can go watch it in just a moment. Max, who recorded the audio and video at the rally the other day, had a very nice microphone, directional microphone, and it basically blanked out everything that was said. Yep. Other than what the speakers were saying at the rally the other day. So I was unable to isolate any of these things that were said, which my wife said happened. I believe it happened 100%. She also told me that the media was there with cameras on the First Nations groups for the whole thing, and they would have video of this, but are saying nothing.
I don't know about that part. I will say that my goal, I was 100% focused on keeping my equipment safe and make sure that the volume was set and balanced when I was doing the audio stuff over there. I cannot correlate to that. However, what I've seen is that the coverage of that specific event, of the rally in particular, was very focused on the First Nations, not necessarily on the protest, not necessarily in our group, and they were very one-sided. Basically saying playing the victim, right?
Apparently as well, on the grounds of the Alberta legislature, once a group has the stage which they've booked there, other people cannot use amplification to say anything during that rally.
What I didn't know, and this is what we didn't know, but that's okay. That's completely fine.
Independence rally, yet they allowed the First Nations to continue to yell and scream at the microphone. They get the First Nations pass.
But I was able to filter out from the mainstream, from the main feed.
So if you want to see the video, I was going to go in and get clips of it. I had difficulties yesterday downloading the video. Best thing for you to do, go watch it at freedomcalendar.net TV, freedomcalendar.net.
I'm just going to skip over to the part where he talks about
.net TV.
Leader
Watch
stuff.
The whole thing. About 2,000 people have, and subscribe to Max's channel. We appreciate him doing that. I think that's best to do, and give him the views on the whole rally. It's great, good quality, and it sounds terrific as well.
Thanks, John. Like my clip. That's awesome. I'm just going to show you the important part. This is where I think that we need that the grassroots needs to focus more. And I'm gonna try to find and read. I have this book. I have the sovereignty handbook from Curry Morgan somewhere in my place. I just don't know because I moved. I just don't know where it is. But I have this book somewhere, and I'm gonna take a look and read it. But he's gonna talk about the issue that we have, which is about leadership.
Danielle Smith is a separatist. Look at this picture.
Mm-hmm.
This is where we are. She's got to walk a fine line. She's been called a separatist because she's lowered the threshold, made it easier for people. This is citizens initiative to go to the government if they've got a grievance.
Yep.
And that means anything, not just the independence movement. If we have the NDP back in this province, we're screwed, folks. We are screwed. And the other thing the NDP are waiting to do is label her as Donald Trump. Carney did it with Poilievre. That helped him. Albanese did it against Peter Dutton, the conservative in Australia. Labor nutcases because Peter Dutton was labeled Donald Trump. If I can find this picture right here, so can the NDP. And they've got pictures of her shaking the hands of Donald Trump. They're going to use this against Danielle Smith in the next election because Trump will still be the president. And for some reason, people think Donald Trump has control over their minds here in Canada. So I'm concerned what she's going to say today. But this leads me to my real concern is, who is leading the independence movement in Alberta?
That over there. And this is something that the grassroots have a lot of difficulty, is to gather together. When I started Freedom Canada about 2 years ago, I started about 2 years ago in July 23. Sorry, my math is failing here. But basically, one of the problems I was trying to solve to some degree is the lack of communication with the grassroots. Most of the information within the grassroots is traveling by private chats, text messaging, and town hall meetings. They're easily, more or less, difficult to coordinate, and that was it. Now what I think is going to happen is that we're going to have 3 or 4 point of views in regards to, okay, this group is called ABC, it's called X group, this group, Y group, this group, Z group. They're all of them going to have their little opinion and their little way of doing things, right? It's why we have a government, basically. People are going to say, F the government, whatever. At least the rules are consistent and at least written. And no matter, and I know there's a 2-tier system rule that applies. I understand it. But what he's going to talk about is a side effect of the grassroots not having the proper tools and not having 100% agreement. Okay? And you'll never have 100% agreement on anything. I have conversations with people they talk about things that I don't agree. I talk about things that don't necessarily agree. They don't necessarily agree, but that's okay. Learn to disagree. It's one thing, that it's something that needs to be developed. When we have the convoy in Ottawa, I was a volunteer in Ottawa. Everyone in that room on Coventry Road had one thing to do and one thing to do only. Okay? The grassroots needs to contextualize their tasks. You're going to have to do this, you're going to have to do that. Working as a team. Right now is too peer-to-peer. Nobody knows what's doing, right? So now transplant that to a pseudo grassroots separatist movement. They don't know the rules and they've never done it before. some people are trying to improvise certain things there and there. And what's going to happen is that those groups are like separated within each other, and they have to come to some agreement to that. I don't know what's going to happen, if there's going to be like a committee or something where all those people want to get together. I got no clue how it's going to happen. But what John Colton is talking about here is a side effect of how the grassroots operates. They operate on a very inefficient model, because most of the people in the grassroots don't know technology. I've been working with technology for 20 years. Okay, you tell me how to build a phone system, I can tell you it's going to take 2 hours. If you ask me how to record from a mixer, I can figure out in 10 minutes or less. If you ask me how to register a domain name, takes 5 minutes. I post the company credit card and off you go. Eventually, grassroots going to do a lot of things by their own, and they're going to hit a technological wall. And because of that, they're going to have disagreements within each other. And that's where we have all those groups everywhere in the province. Is the reason why Take Back Alberta was so successful, because they have one job to do. If you outline the one job to do to all the people in the grassroots, it's easy to coordinate things. It's easy to move things ahead. If everybody's doing the little things, people don't move. They're doing the little things ahead.
We have no leader. And it really does concern me. Jeevan Mangat, great guy, Wild Rose Independence Party of Alberta, had him on my channel, spoken to him a couple of times, helped set up the get-together in Edmonton the other day. He's not really leading the movement. One of the leaders, Jeffrey Rath, you may have heard the name, Alberta lawyer, wears a hat, said he's going to go down to talk to Donald Trump about becoming the 51st state. Here's Jeffrey.
We send $70 billion plus a year to Ottawa and get less than $35 billion a year back from the rest of Canada, or Confederation as it's called. So imagine the wealth and the prosperity of this province with all of that money remaining in the province, remaining in the provincial economy.
I like Mr. Rath. He's a 51st state guy. I would prefer independence for Alberta. Is Mr. Rath interested in being part of the independence movement here?
And to my knowledge, in order to be in a state in the United States, you have to be a country first. You can't just jump from one state to another. But I'm not a lawyer. I'm more like a technician here. But from my understanding is that's what you mentioned, is that there's going to be a moment where people are going to say one thing, they want one thing, they want another group are going to just want the other one in another timing and everything. Some people in the grassroots, most of them, they act on emotions, which is a problem. On its own, it's a problem, because you think like, oh my God, we need to do this and this and this and this and this and this is fast. Danielle Smith is doing this, other people are doing this. So control their emotion control is paramount in this particular situation here.
I don't think he's the leader of this. Big voice, probably the biggest voice of all these people. He's been in the news a lot lately. And then we got this guy who pops up. Just left the United Conservative Party. He's pissed off with Danielle Smith and the UCP. Here's Cameron Davies, the head of the Republican Party of Alberta.
And again, another guy who shows up. So it's going to be that's going to create a situation where you will not have 100% of the vote on any groups. The more groups you have, the likelihood for you can have 100% agreement on anything. Anyways, represent that into a vote. Some people, they don't want to be part of the United States. Some people don't want to be their own country. I remember a while ago when I was goofing around with the freedom community here in Alberta. Okay. I was with the guys from the Alberta Prosperity Project when they were doing all those town hall meetings and stuff, and I believe Dennis Modry was there and a bunch of others. Basically, they were saying, look, if we table the path that Alberta needs to take, fine. Could it be that Alberta needs to take more control of their resources? Would you guys want to stay in Canada while Alberta retains full control of their resources? Right? That's a question. If you want Alberta to, let's say they have a 5-year plan for Alberta, what will that to be? Would you like to have your, let's say, would you like Alberta to be remaining in Canada with more control over their resources, even though it's in the Constitution? It's just that the federal government are just being stupid and ignorant and, quite frankly, being Canada. But that's another story. Do you want Alberta to be its own country? Right? Do you want Alberta to be the 51st state? Okay. By the way, if you're curious in the subject, I will have a whole bunch of friends in Quebec who are very close to what they call the Party 51, Parti 51, which is a provincial political party and in Quebec. And I think that the guy who started Party 51 basically closed the party because there was no, I don't know why he closed the party, but he essentially closed the party. He closed the organization and he's moving west. No, he's moving into Florida, I believe. Just FYI. But at the Alberta Prosperity Project, who was asked this question is, how do you see Alberta moving forward in the next 1, 2, 3, 5 years, right? And one of the things that we're talking about is just that, is how you see things right now. It's going to be chaotic in the next 2 months. Especially in summer, it's going to be chaotic because of lack of communication and lack of technological skills from people.
After decades of attempts at reconciliation with the rest of Canada, now is the time to end the abusive and toxic relationship with Ottawa and the East that we find ourselves in today.
Understood. But this is what I'm talking about, is that you have multiple groups talking each other, have their own vision of things. And this thing, I sincerely believe that this thing will have to be eventually be put a vote or something. I don't know the details of it, but you're going to see that as time progresses, you're going to see all those little groups, all those little visions that will form the little groups as well, right? So good for thought. Let's see how it goes from there. But the way I see things is it's just a side effect of how the grassroots is composed of and how they operate as well too, right?
He's the guy that's heading up the independence movement here in Alberta. I don't think so. He says that the Alberta Republicans, unfortunate name, by the way, you know what people think immediately, they're the leading movement to hold a binding independence referendum. I don't think Mr. Davies is well known enough to head up this movement. You have to understand, let's go back to 1995 in Quebec. A little bit of a history lesson here. I was in Montreal during the big rally in downtown Montreal.
This point is super important, guys.
Just before the referendum. But the people heading up the Let's Get Quebec Out of Canada movement at that point were Jacques Parizeau, the head of the Parti Québécois and the premier of the province, and Lucien Bouchard, the head of the Bloc Québécois, who was the leader of the official opposition in the House of Commons. You're talking huge names here. The equivalents in Alberta would be having Danielle Smith, premier, and Pierre Poilievre heading up the independence movement here. We've got no.
That's exactly the point. That's exactly the point. We don't, the grassroots movement doesn't need to rush things. And I know that a lot of people are running on emotions, right? A lot of people are running on emotions, right? When people run on emotions, that is when things tend to destabilize, and that's when people don't see things clearly. Okay? I got some comments here. I just want to read those, one of them. Rebel News should sit down with all those groups in private and have them find a common ground and merge together as one. Yes, and I understand the point here. But here's the thing. The Federal Conservative Party is, in fact, two groups together. You got the Reform and you got the another party. I just don't remember. But they're essentially two clans together. Okay? The UCP was a mix of, it's a blend with, it's a mix of the Wild Rose movement and the progressive conservatives, right? That's why when you go, if you're sitting at the CA board at the UCP level, you're gonna have some people who are what they call the Canaanites, and you have the Danielle Smith ones, right? You're gonna have the grassroots ones who are gonna have a clash with the already established one from the previous administration, from Jason Kenney in there. So when you have a merger, you're going to have a situation like this. It's good that you have a common ground, 100%, but there's going to be a people who are going to put differences together. Okay, I've been with the Conservative Party of Quebec from the very beginning. At that time, it's called the ADQ. And most of those fusions started like this. The Quebec, there's a party in Quebec called Quebec Solidaire. They're essentially a group of three parties mixed together, and that also includes the Communist Party of Quebec. So it's really down to what you want to merge with, right? Another comment here. A reference to demand fairness, empowerment for the West. Empowerment for the West from the first part of the post-elected Senate. Again, we're talking about we're talking here about the I got schematic. That's my electrical engineering side that kicks in. Schematics, PCB. No, that is the your Russian things. First thing is the vote. And second, how you see things and everything can be done over time. But step one is to get the vote, is to get the referendum. That's like number one priority, is to get the actual referendum vote. Okay. I have some footage that I'm analyzing here and that I have on my back burner here. So I got some footage that I have on my computer and somewhere around too about, because this is a movement here in Alberta, right? This is like, I've been here in Alberta for almost 3 years now. And what I've seen here is that lots of people in the grassroots from other provinces are moving here to Alberta. Okay. So they're moving to Alberta because when I moved here to Alberta, I was very aware what was happening here in Alberta. I've done a lot of research on how things are moving here and everything. Those people who are moving from Ontario and everything, they're going to come here to Alberta and they will know what they're going through in a state of shock, right? So we need to work on that, I guess. I mean, the grassroots needs to work on that, I believe. But you don't, the probability to have 100% agreement on something is approximately zero. Take a town hall meeting of 100 people. That's the average size of a town hall meeting in central Alberta. I've attended at countless meetings in Alberta across the province. 100 people in the province. The probability that all of them will agree on everything, like copy and paste of your brain multiplied by the number of people you have there, is approximately 0. At best, 1%. Because 10 to the minus 1 is 0.101. It's 1%, right? So it really boils down to you have to make sure, and you have to make sure to have a common ground, but you will not have 100% agreement on anything. There are things that from Alberta 51 I don't agree. There is something about this that I don't agree. You can't convince me a lot about other things in technology that will say that's absolutely bullshit. So let's see how it goes from there. And so I'm gonna watch some videos about the independence and everything. I mean, because of the Freedom Canada, I run a lot of things on the back end, post a lot of events. So I'm in touch with a lot of people as a result. So I have like a top view of the situation here. Basically, what the grassroots needs to do at this point, I believe, is to, and I'm gonna finish with this because I have to run to the store and get some cables and stuff. What the grassroots needs to focus right now is to focus on the vote to the referendum. The 177,000 people that you heard across the years, in the last couple of days, is technically not relevant at this point. And that's the one. And two, just be patient and don't act on emotions. That's the best thing I can possibly give to people, is to act rationally and and don't focus on emotions. I would like to tell people to, for instance, take the video from John Bolton and watch at least 3 times and trying to get a conclusion of it. Emotions are a problem when you need to think rationally. And it happened with everything. Every single problem in the grassroots is because of emotions. So I'm not saying that you need to be like Equilibrium. If you ever watch that movie, you don't need to go and take Prosium, please. I'm not talking about, this is my cinephile side of things. I'm not talking about Equilibrium side of things. I'm going to share this tab here. I'm not talking about Equilibrium or something. That's not the point, but you get the idea that people need to think rationally more than anything else, especially right now. So this is what I have today. I was happy to see you guys over there. That was fantastic. Thanks for being with us. Thanks for being at the stream today. Thanks for those who watched the entirety of Danielle Smith's speech today. I was very surprised, and quite frankly, that was very good that she has come to that interview, I believe. But on the other hand, there are some people who want to get mad because she was not doing good enough. On the other hand, she said she's the premier. What do you guys expect? Some comments before I leave. We all over the sovereignty. I think it's coming to us. I think referendum could be a referendum right away. Yeah. But again, you're rushing things. You're right. He's rushing things. Some little comments before I leave. I just want to know, guys, where you guys are watching the show, because I've seen a lot of people from Eastern Canada watching this thing too. I got some people from South who are watching this too. So let's see how it goes, and we'll keep you in touch. I'm going to rant about multiple subjects probably. So it's good to see the development of the grassroots at least go into one particular direction. It looks like, I was talking to some people here, it looks like the same the same willingness to change things that people had in the convoy, but focusing on one thing. That is grassroots. That's what's important. Now, what's important is to how to do it efficiently. Efficiency is the number one priority. People need to be efficient, not necessarily how to do things. Okay? So thanks for coming today. Max here. And I hope to see you eventually in another improvised live somewhere. And we'll go from there. Have a good one, guys. Love you all. God bless.